Are you tired of your brain always trying to remind you of the stupid things you did when you're just trying to sleep?
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. What's your name?
Emily.
I'm Josh.
Hi.
Can I kiss you?
Sure.
Well, no more. Or when your brain reminds you of all the times you failed such a stupid, simple handshake. No more. Or when your brain reminds you of that stupid joke you once made.
Flies, you dies. So far, I'm only halfway there.
It depends on who the you is referring to.
Well, say it with me, no more. Well, get your very own brain reset right now. Using Dr. Cameron's all-natural, all-new, all-improved recipe, we can reset your brain in mere days. The method has been tested and improved for years, making sure it works for everyone. Maybe get yours today at 0800 new brain today. That is 0800 new brain today for a new brain. Test conducted without consent and without actual positive result. This product does not work and Dr. Cameron will refuse any responsibility for the consequences. Customers will risk losing their entire way of being and cannot sue the company. Today I'm going to be talking about this guy, Dr. Donald Ewen Cameron. His research in trying to reset the brain had some very peculiar results, to say the least, and some heavy implications to the rest of the world. Dr. Cameron was a Scottish-born psychiatrist who worked for most of his life in the United States and in Canada. When Dr. Cameron was a little boy, he had some very interesting ideas. He had the idea to go to his crush's bedroom, walk into her room, and believe that if he told her in her sleep that she liked him as often as possible, then surely at a certain moment in life, she would actually start to believe it. Every night he would climb up to her bedroom, sneak into her room, and whisper in her ear, "You like Donald. You like Donald. All right." Up. In the hope that one day she would wake up and think to herself, "Hey, that Cameron guy? I kinda like him." No, that story is completely false, but it is one of the main theories that he was working on. So when Dr. Cameron became older, he took this idea and tried to implement it into his psychological studies. So he would induce them into a sleep and actually flood them with positive messages so that when they would wake up from this sleep, they would feel more positive. That was his core idea, and he called it psychic driving. So at the time when he wanted to start these experiments, he was teaching at the McGill's Allan Memorial Institute, which was a mental hospital, and in that hospital he conducted the majority of his experiments on random Canadian citizens. Those experiments were dubious, to say the least. So he started out with his theory, right? You need people to get into a certain sleep long enough, and then when they're in that sleep, spread them with positive messages. The first problem was that he first had to get rid of the negative thoughts that were already present in the people with those mental issues. And actually, the idea fell upon him quite easily. Namely, he saw this video.
Is this what you want? Come on, strike me down, Zeus. You don't have the ball.
And when he saw this video, the idea struck him. Electroshock. therapy. Now, of course, it wasn't through this video. Electroshock therapy was a very popular way of treating mental issues at the time, and apparently still is. He would shock these patients, oftentimes using way more than the normally used amount of electricity, trying to reset their mind. Because Cameron believed that the mind was a purely physical thing, something that could be reset and then rebuilt. So that's exactly what he wanted to do first. Reset the minds of his patients, and oftentimes, in a certain sense, worked. I mean, these people had their entire state of being, entire state of mind absolutely shattered, which often had very long-lasting effects. When Cameron actually succeeded in reducing them to this near infant-like state, came of course the next step. How do you get these people a long enough sleep so that you can actually flood them with these positive messages? For this, he used the drug LSD. He used this drug to keep people in comas for a very long time, and then he flooded them with messages. Now, after conducting these experiments for numerous years, he had to conclude that it didn't work. None of his patients actually started showing positive signs. In fact, all of them degraded, and all of them had long-lasting effects. And when you read the reports of what happened at the hospital, these reports are literally inhuman. These people were people who were oftentimes admitted to the hospital for relatively minor mental issues. Take anxiety, depression, and sometimes even worse issues like postnatal depression. But most importantly, these people didn't know what they signed up for. Most of them didn't even sign up for anything. They signed up for treatment, not for days on days on days of drug-induced comas or shock therapy way above the usual threshold. And in fact, the majority of them left the hospital in a state worse than when they entered, way worse. When they left the institute, some of them didn't even recognize their parents anymore. Some of them didn't even know how to speak or even how to use cutlery. Entire ways of living were erased and were never again restored. So Dr. Cameron mainly conducted his work using drugs such as LSD, but also using electroshock and even complete sensory isolation, oftentimes even reported up to 101 days. I think you're all familiar with the effects that this might have on somebody. Imagine being locked inside of a room with no sensory information whatsoever for days on end. Of course it's gonna make you go insane. And this despite Dr. Cameron even being present at the Nuremberg trials, which happened after the Second World War, in which a huge assembled body of scientists, judges, philosophers, anybody you can think of, were assembled and basically said, after the experiments that were conducted by the Germans in the Second World War, they said, no more. And a core principle which they set out during these Nuremberg trials is that any future studies should always be conducted with consent from the patient. And Dr. Cameron was present at this verdict. He knew that these were the laws, these were the principles set by his colleagues, his associates. And yet, when he returned home to Canada, he continued doing precisely the opposite, because he did not have the consent from his patients to do all of this stuff. Now, of course, you might be questioning, then why did he do it? Why was he allowed, more so, to do this, and who gave him the funds to do this? Now, working at the Institute, Cameron received what would now be near to $750,000 US from a society called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. This society was relatively new. In fact, it didn't even exist a couple of years before Dr. Cameron started doing his research. But, of course, Cameron asked them very politely, "Hey, Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, you're not some weird government agency or anything, right?" "What? No. Really? So you're not affiliated with the CIA or anything?" "Us? No way, man. Get out of here." Now, years later, it was of course revealed that the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology was, in fact, the CIA. It was basically a fund created by the CIA in order to fund international scientists, because Remind you, this was taking place in Canada, not in the US, and on Canadian citizens. But they created this fund to allow scientists such as Cameron to conduct work into the workings of the human brain, and especially into how to reset its cognitive capacities. And this funding was part of the larger project MKultra. Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar, or at least familiar with the name of the CIA's MKultra project, in which they set out to try and find a way how to reset the brain of whether it be spies or even politicians, and to try and convert them into willingly giving them information. It was basically brain control. That's what they were trying to achieve, brain control of their enemies. Now, when it was later uncovered that the CIA was in fact behind the funding of this program, of course there was a senatory hearing. Whenever you ask the CIA anything, whenever you ask them, did you do this? There's a very easy guide on how the CIA will answer. And I actually managed to find a copy of orientation tapes that they show to new CIA staff members. Here it is. Alright, welcome everybody to a new episode of The Art of Classifying. Today, a very exciting day, because you will all be taught how to classify your very own document the proper CIA style. Now, the colors you'll be needing today will be below the screen right now. And before we get started on anything, we of course have to properly cleanse our brush. To do that, we simply whack the brush, really cleanse it from all its wrong ideologies, really smash the communism out of it, just to say. Alright, so as an example document, I have right here an old test of mine, nothing too important. But of course, in the proper CIA style, the first thing you want to do when classifying your document is to get rid of all the sensitive information that might bring danger to you or your fellow colleagues whenever you release a document to the public. So let's say this document was to be released to the public, we of course want to get rid of all the sensitive information. Now, the first step is names. You want to get rid of all the names. Put your brush in a good layer of your color and then simply strike the name, just like that. Now, I already did part of my name, and I already did the second step as well, namely locations. So once again, give it a slight dip into your paint and get that out of there. So over here we have another location. Give it a nice, clean, straight stripe, just like that. Now over here on the top we have another minor one. Just get that out of there. So now that we have name and location covered, we move on to the next thing, which is dates. We want to get rid of anything that indicates when this might have happened. So here we have a date of birth. We want to give it a nice, clean black stripe. Here we have the date of the location. Clean stripe through it. And that's it. Now that we've covered the names and all of the dates and the location, this file is ready to be released to the public.
No, you still got to do the results next.
Oh, I guess we're not yet finished. We have a couple of more sensitive information. First up, the result from the test. This might harm people and we don't want that. So let's give it a nice clean brush strike. So take your paint again, and here you have the result. Give it a nice clean strike. Oops, I didn't go exactly straight there, but that's okay. Everybody has their own little scandals now and then. There's nothing to worry about. So now that we have the result out of the way, we are finished with the...
No, there's still some more.
Come on guys, we can at least plan this a bit before. Okay, so we're not yet quite finished. We have a couple more sensitive things in this document. For example, percentages and objects. We want to get rid of all of them, of course. So let's get your brush again, dip it a bit in the paint, give it a nice layer of paint, and let's get to it. So we have a name, an object right here we want to get rid of. Now,
Here we have another name. Nice. Clean strikes. Remember, you want to get it out of your wrist. There we go. Here another one. Out of your wrist. 1 strike. Perfect. And there we go. All the names are now covered up as well, and there's no more any classified information. No, there's actually a bit more. Guys, come on, this isn't fuck. I guess there are still some minor things which we have to adjust before we're ready to release our document. So let's get right to it. And apply the strokes from your wrist. 1 fell sweep. Just like that. 1 fell sweep. As if it's a military junta going over a town square. 1 nice sweep. Just like that. As if you're eliminating the people of your own country. There we go. And there we go. Just as easy as replacing a democratically elected socialist ruler in a foreign country. That's it, guys. Thank you, guys. Actually, just a little
More? How much more of this document do I have to leave? There's going to be nothing left.
Alright, guys. Sorry I got a bit distracted. Sometimes even professionals have tiny little scandals. But hey, at the CIA, we call them happy little accidents. Now our document is properly classified and we're ready to release it to the public. This way all of our agents are kept secret and they're prevented from any harm of the outside world and they're kept completely safe. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope this helps you on classifying your documents and on preventing your little scandals from becoming open to the public. Thank you.
So at the hearing, the CIA finally did admit that they funded Cameron's research, but they didn't specify to what extent. We know the amount of money, we know which patients were affected, but only because of the patients' own trials, because of them speaking up and saying, this happened to me. We don't know how many people were affected. We don't know to what extent they were affected. We don't know if people died. We don't know if people were left completely paralyzed, because all of the people who admitted that they were part of this trial were either compensated with a hefty amount or silenced, but all of them were forced in some way or another to sign an NDA to not speak about this, and the CIA essentially tried to prevent any from this information from becoming public. So the information we have on Dr. Cameron's research and the CIA's MKultra research is merely the tip of the iceberg. Keep that in mind. These awful things that have happened are not even the worst of it, because the worst of it was censored. We only know these things, which are already awful. So much worse things have happened, which we don't even know about and which we probably never even will. Cameron claimed that he never knew that the CIA gave him this money, and there's no way to prove that if he did or if he didn't. And it doesn't really matter either, because Cameron's actions were not at all right. Like, you can't just take people who come to you asking for help for these relatively simple issues and then treat them with these insanely drastic measures of just shocking them to their core and then talking to them in their sleep, hoping that it does something, and after case after case after case, not having any good results, still keep on doing it. That's not the way you conduct any experiment, and it's not the way you treat humans to begin with. But of course the CIA liked this experiment because it helped them not at all in finding new ways how to help people, because that's not what they were interested in. No, they were more so interested in his use of drugs, his use of electroshock, and especially his use of sensory deprivation. They stripped the second phase of his program of psychic driving. They didn't really care for that, but they were more so interested in how he stripped these people of their mental state in the first place. And the CIA used these measures and many others in the MKultra project. Now, the MKultra project is a topic for an entirely different video, and I'm sure there's plenty of videos on the topic out there, and I definitely recommend you watching them if you're interested in it. But I just wanted to cover Dr. Cameron's side of it, of his inhumane experiments, and especially the effects it had in a later stage. Because I arrived at this topic through a certain book, a book written by Naomi Klein, which is called The Shock Doctrine. Because Naomi, she takes these ideas of Dr. Cameron, she looks at this state of shock that was induced by Cameron, and she especially looks at how people took this idea that you can shock something to its core and then rebuild it afterwards. And she applies this to what she calls, and many other people call, disaster capitalism. So yeah, I hope you thought the video was interesting. I hope you learned something. I wanted to make this video and the upcoming videos mostly because I felt like when reading this book and learning this stuff, I was surprised at the fact that I didn't know this. These things are awful, and the fact that these happened and the information is public, I feel like more people should know about it. So that's why essentially I wanted to make this video. So I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it to a certain extent. Of course, not the information, but at least the video itself. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. I will be releasing some other videos about the shock doctrine, in which I will also be looking at the political implications and how governments in South America, governments in Asia and Eastern Europe have all used these elements of shock doctrine to terrorize their own population. More on that in the next video. Feel free to like and subscribe, and see you all in the next one.